How investigators find the source of a fire. Now, this is interesting because how do you actually find out how a fire started if the whole place is completely burned down? To me it makes no sense. So this is interesting.
November 18th, 1987. Like
Right?
every night on the London Underground, it's packed. A train on the Piccadilly line has just pulled into King's Cross, one of Britain's busiest stations. The horde of passengers get off, but as they squeeze their way up the old wooden escalators, one passenger notices a strange glow coming from within the escalator.
Oh,
It's on fire. 10 minutes later, the London Fire Brigade arrive on the scene to what is now a small escalator fire. Nothing they haven't dealt with before. But in a matter of seconds, the entire escalator
escalates.
suddenly ignites, sending a jet of fire upwards and into the ticket hall, killing 31 people inside.
they're dead.
Figuring out what exactly happened here was mind-blowing.
Yo, those people just got slimed out.
Down a 7-month rabbit hole until they eventually discovered a unique physical phenomena completely unknown until this point that allowed the fire to behave in mysterious ways. We animated the entire thing to show you how investigators locate the source of a fire and how early computer simulations led to the discovery of this gravity-defying effect.
Okay.
Even in a large fire, buildings usually don't burn all the way to the ground. Firefighters normally arrive in time to control the fire, leaving behind a scene full of clues and evidence that can lead investigators to the source.
Yeah, but the inside
By
is absolutely
systematically narrowing
destroyed.
down the search to the rooms with the most damage, they can start looking at the details. Fire burns upwards and outwards.
Yeah.
So when an object burns next to a wall, it creates a distinct V shape that widens out closer to the ceiling. If the object is slightly further from the wall, it creates more of a
circle,
U-shaped burn mark,
right?
since the tip of the fire doesn't touch the wall. In a small, simple fire that gets put out early,
I never thought
these
about
burn marks
this.
usually point towards an obvious source of the fire. But once a fire spreads to multiple objects,
Okay,
these
yes.
burn patterns start blending together.
Yes, how do you
On top
find
of
from
that,
this?
Fire can get pulled towards openings like doors and windows, where the abundance of oxygen helps the fire grow. This can leave some areas of the room looking more damaged than the actual source. Take a look at this
Yes.
room, for example. Is it obvious where the fire started? We can see multiple V patterns. But this area
Yeah.
here looks more burnt. It's possible that the fire started here, but worked its way up to the curtain, dropping burning debris onto the sofa. Then eventually, the window smashed with the heat and allowed fresh oxygen to flow in, drawing the fire towards that side of the room. But wait, if you lift up the carpet, you'll see what looks like liquid stains. This can be a sign that something like gasoline was used to quickly and deliberately start the fire.
Oh,
If an investigator suspects
Gasoline?
arson, they can send in a sniffer dog, specially trained to sniff out these kinds of flammable substances. If none of this leads towards an obvious source, the investigators will look towards the objects themselves.
not the
When
Game
materials reach a
Boy!
certain temperature,
No!
water molecules and other
The Game
organic compounds
Boy!
inside turn into gas, leaving behind a layer of carbon. This is known as char.
Yeah.
As the material keeps burning, it works its way inward towards the fresh, unburnt material, leaving behind a thicker and thicker layer of char over time. And so, by measuring the char depth of similar materials at various points in the room,
Ah, you can see how long something has been burning. This guy is using his noodle.
investigators can build up an image of which areas started burning first. This doesn't give a definitive result, but it can help lead them closer to a possible source. But what happens when a fire defies all of these rules? In the London Underground fire, eyewitnesses reported the fire behaving in strange ways. It wasn't burning upwards, but at an angle, perfectly horizontal to the escalator. This baffled the investigators for months, until they tried recreating the fire on one of the most powerful supercomputers around, Odoo. Just kidding.
Odoo.
Odoo is actually an all-in.
Motherfucker.
Escalator fires on the London Underground weren't uncommon. In fact, in the 30 years before the King's Cross fire, more than 400 had been reported. Although smoking had
They should probably stop using wood. It said a wooden escalator. Did this click in nobody's brain that maybe wood wasn't the best idea to use for like material to build an escalator, which is known to be caught on fire?
been recently banned in underground stations, people regularly broke this rule and would often light up just before getting on the escalator. Matches and cigarettes would fall between the gaps, igniting the escalator steps, which were still surprisingly made of wood in many underground stations.
London's
Thing
got
is,
it,
these
man.
fires would almost always go out by themselves. So why
Why?
did this
Oh.
one go from a small fire to an enormous inferno in just a matter of seconds?
Yeah.
When investigators opened up the other escalators in the station, they noticed that a large amount of grease had built up. And according to staff, this hadn't been cleaned in years. Normally, this grease on its own would be very hard to ignite. But after years of accumulation, the grease was full of dust, fiber, and debris that had dropped through the gaps after years of operation.
So it's the cleaning crew's
Investigators tested
issue.
this grease on an open model of the escalators and found that it was very easy for lit matches to fall down the gaps, ignite the grease, and start a small fire. But no matter what they did, the fire would always burn vertically and eventually put itself out. There
Vertically,
was
why
still
vert?
something missing. One of the main theories was that the ceiling paint, which was 20 layers thick, had absorbed the heat, ignited, and caused the fire to spread up the escalator shaft. But this went against the witness statements, which claimed that the fire never touched the ceiling at all, and instead stuck to the escalator steps all the way to the top.
What's
To determine
pushing
whether
it
this was even
upwards?
possible or not, a computer simulation was set up using the Cray 2 supercomputer, the only one that existed in the UK. This calculated the temperature and airflow of gas at various points to simulate how the fire might have spread. The result was astonishing. The simulation perfectly predicted that the flames and hot gases wouldn't travel upwards, but instead hug the entire length of the escalator steps. This completely defied normal fire behavior, as you
But
would
why would
expect
it
the
do
hot
this?
buoyant gases to have a lot of upwards force. Here's what's happening. Thanks to the trench-like shape of the escalator shaft and its 30-degree angle, the flame couldn't spread outwards, and so the heat had to flow in the direction of the trench. At first, some of the flames did escape upwards through the gaps, but the majority were forced to travel under the escalator steps. As this stream of hot gas accelerated up the escalator shaft,
pushes it
its
upwards.
pressure dropped, creating a difference in pressure above and
And
below
below.
the steps.
Yup.
This gradually pushed the fire over until it started sticking to the underside of the steps. The hotter it burned, the faster it traveled, and the more it stuck to the steps. To witnesses, all they could see was a rather small, insignificant fire halfway up the escalator. But beneath the steps, the hot gases were heating the entire length of
That's
the wooden escalator
insane.
to temperatures well above 500 degrees.
Holy
Those hot
shit.
gases were then funneling into the ticket hall and filling up the void above the false ceiling.
Yeah, so it
What
naturally
happened next
it naturally
turned a small fire
went up.
into a disaster. When materials reach a certain temperature, they
Holy
ignite
fuck.
automatically, causing the fire to spread almost instantly. This is known as a flashover. Eventually, the escalator and hot gases reached this temperature, and in an instant, everything ignited. This
Yeah.
sent a fireball rushing up the escalator and into the ticket hall, igniting every surface and filling the place with fire and smoke. The computer simulation had shown this exact effect perfectly, but it wasn't fully believed until the investigators performed real tests on a scale model of the escalator shaft. At first, the fire burned upwards. But
Okay.
after just a few minutes, it
It
started
did burn
lying
like
down and
it did?
hugging the floor of the escalator. This brand new discovery was named the
It-
trench
like,
effect. And
holy
it led to
fuck.
a bunch of new safety
Seeing
improvements.
that in real
All
life
wooden
is
escalators
different
were
than like the
replaced,
computer
and heat
simulation,
detectors
obviously.
were added beneath escalators with automatic sprinkler systems. Thanks for
Oh,
watching, and I'll
okay. So I mean, it took a little bit too long for this to happen, and I still don't know why London was using wooden thingies. It's crazy how I didn't even bother to consider the pressure, the difference in pressure between like the air below and then the air above when the gas is starting, when the fire is starting to form. It never once crossed my mind. And that char thing, like seeing where the char is to guide where it could have started or where it was, where the main fires were, is actually ingenious. I didn't even think to use my noodle.